So I don't know how much I'll use the mic because staying in one spot is difficult for me. I don't do it well. So I may roam. So raise your arm if you ever can't hear me, in case I tend to walk. So compassion fatigue. How many of you think you know what that means? Okay. How many of you have experienced it? Okay. How many of you are sure maybe you've experienced it? Kinda, I don't know, maybe? Okay. So I'm going to tell a quick little story that I think is very on point with the topic. So last Friday, I had 3 sessions back to back. And one of the things that I'll tell you about what I do at Rimrock, I do a lot of this stuff. I do some management of some of our program stuff. And then I also see families and individuals. I do a lot of adjunctive therapy. And so last Friday, I happened to have 3 back-to-back sessions, which isn't really that unusual. Sometimes I'm back-to-back like that. What was unusual is that all 3 of these individuals were talking about some significant trauma issues. 2 of them, it was the first time they'd ever shared that story with anyone, and they shared it with me. And so because it was so, finish one session, then go to another one, I never had time to do anything with it. I just had it in, okay, hold on to it, then the next one, then the next one. And then it came to our 1 o'clock meeting, and at Rimrock we have a meeting at 1 o'clock that a lot of us in administration are in, so I was in that meeting, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I was like zoned out. And one of my coworkers said, "Malcolm, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm good." It was just kind of a big morning. It was kind of a lot. And then I started crying. I'm like, "What? No, I'm the therapist. I don't cry. Not altogether. I can handle myself." And it really hit me that, wow, there were 3 huge trauma issues going on in my office in front of me in a very short amount of time. And it's what we call compassion fatigue. In any of those variations where at some point our job hits us. Whether we're a counselor, whether we're a case manager, case worker, working with children, working with addiction, working with anything. Most of us go into this field because we want to help people. How many of you went into this field because you want to help people? How many of you went into the field for the paycheck? None of us, right? Because that's not what you get with this job. You go because you want to help people. And so we go into that job, and sometimes I don't think we always realize it does take a toll on us. It does hit us. And we have to constantly dance this fine line between having empathy and compassion, because to do our job, you need to have empathy. You need to have compassion, particularly if you're a therapist. How many of you are therapists in here? 2 of us? High five. All right. So as therapists, one of the things that you learn is that you have to be able to build rapport. And one of the ways that you build rapport is through empathy. Compassion. We have to have compassion in order to do what we need to do for people. How many times does anybody of you ever catch themselves, and you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, how many of you ever catch yourselves where you're working with a client or a patient and somehow in your head you're like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Like, really? Grow up." Or some version of that. Okay, right? Do you actually say that to your client? No. Maybe you do sometimes. I know every once in a while, especially with my borderlines, every once in a while I'm like, "Stop. Just stop." But we don't say that. What do we say to them? Even though in our head we're like, what do we say to them?
It's okay.
It's okay. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're sharing this with me. Even if inside our head we're going, okay, 55 minutes until you get to leave my office. So having to dance that fine line. And so what I want to do today is I want to kind of talk a little bit about what is compassion fatigue, how do you know that you have it, and then maybe some strategies to deal with it, okay? So lots of little, I forget what they call these, I call them word piles, but there's an actual word title name for them. I call them a word pile. All those things can go into what we do. So what is it? It's actually defined by when a caregiving relationship founded on empathy results in a psychological response to stress. Okay? So that's what it is. When Friday at 1 o'clock, when I'm sitting in that meeting, it was my response to, wow. Not only were there 3 very traumatizing or traumatized people in my office, but 2 of them had never shared that with another human. okay? So then having, of course, an obvious psychological response. It's like watching a sad movie and not crying, right? And I'm one of those counselors that I say, if you have to cry in a session, okay. I'm not saying you take all the Kleenex from your client, but letting them see that, wow, that really hurts me too, It is in everyone's job description to be compassionate, and it's also called the emotional cost of caring. How many of you ever feel like a dumping ground for everybody else's problems? And then what do? You go home, and your husband or your wife or your kids, then they want to dump their problems on you. Anybody ever go home and you kind of feel like your family is really irritating the crap out of you? Okay, everyone should raise their hand. But at some point, sometimes we feel like I've already given 110% of myself during the day. I don't have any more to give back when I get home. And that's not in a place we want to be. We want to be able to save some for our real life, for our family, for our kids, for whatever the case may be. So one of the things, of course, up there, tell a counselor. Counselors often get told all of this stuff, and we have to develop kind of I want to say a thick skin. Not so thick that nothing gets through, but thick enough that it doesn't weigh on us. Our patients often come to us, and patients, clients, whatever you refer them to, often come to us for compassion and support, and if we are drained, we are not able to provide them the support that they need. How many of you have ever had someone come into your office and you're thinking, oh, I wish they would have canceled? Right? Everybody ever have someone no call, no show, or call to cancel, and you do your little happy dance? You're like, yes. Because, whew, I get a break. Sometimes that's a warning to ourselves that, wow, what's going on that this patient isn't coming and I'm doing my happy dance? Do I need a break myself? And if we're not able to give that, what do they see then? If I'm sitting in my office and I'm like, yeah, you came. All right, put on the counselor face. What kind of session am I going to give them? Probably not a very good one. Has anybody ever gone to a doctor's appointment and you feel like you are just the biggest pain in that doctor's ass? Butt. Anybody ever go to a doctor's appointment or call customer service and you feel like you are just being annoying to them when their job is customer service? So being aware of ourselves, how many of you ever noticed that with yourself? That your patient, your client, whatever you refer to them at, you just don't want to deal with them today. What do you do? Anybody, what do you do? How many of you just suck it up? After you've sucked it up, do you do anything after that? Because sometimes we do have to suck it up. Sometimes we absolutely have to just, I'm going to deal with this. But then do you go do anything afterwards? Anybody? Kickboxing? Yeah, there you go. I got to do something. And sometimes for some of us, that is, we need to get that emotional stuff out. I remember when I have 8-year-old twins, and when they were younger, I would, before I'd go pick them up, I would run home real quick for about 10 minutes, and I would change my clothes and take a shower. Because I needed to take the day off. I needed to change out of the nice professional clothes, put on the mommy sweatpants, take a shower, wash it off, so then I could go be mom. So we have to be able to know when do I need that break, and what do I do? Compassion is essential to building therapeutic rapport, and we all do that, even if you're not a counselor. How many of you are case managers, caseworkers, probation, anything like that? Okay, so you still have to have some type of relationship with that person. And on some level, they have to trust you a little bit. And if I don't have that mental and emotional energy, I'm probably not going to convey much trust. Especially when I'm looking at my watch going, all right, 45 more minutes. So what else do you want to talk about? So the results. When we have compassion fatigue and we don't choose to do anything about it, or we're not aware of it, lack of motivation, poor attitude, and this is the outside the norm. We all have coworkers who just have a poor attitude just because they do, right? Not going to change them. I'm talking about the people who normally they do okay, and then they're not. Like my coworker on Friday, she noticed I was not being my regular self, that there was something going on. So we have that lack of motivation, that poor attitude. We don't want to deal. Dreading coming to work. Anybody ever dread to come to work? I can remember, not at my current job, but at a different employer, there would be days where I would literally be going to work thinking inside my head, just 8 hours. It's just 8 hours. Just get through the next 8 hours. That's a bad sign. How do I cope with the next 8 hours, knowing that then I'm going to have to do it again the next day? Has anybody ever gone to work thinking, so if I didn't go into work today, what would happen? Okay, I'd have to reschedule that. But I could do that. Okay, reschedule that. Mentally shuffling your day? Anybody ever do that? That also is a sign to yourself that, wow, something's going on that I'm not wanting to deal with this today. On some level, I'm unable to. Because we don't have jobs that are like, Walmart checkers or, baristas at City Brew. What we do takes emotional effort. And if I don't have any, I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do. So how do I do it? We also will have that poor patient or customer care. I know I have done that. There's been times where I really feel like I need to go there with the patient. They've got an issue that we need to address. I need to go there. And there might be some days where I'm like, you know what? Emotionally, I don't think I can do it today. Because if I'm not emotionally ready, I'm going to hurt that person. Or I have the possibility of hurting that person because I'm not going to be able to really get them through whatever the emotional issue was. Poor decision making, they've actually done studies that look at the ethical choices that we make when we are experiencing compassion fatigue, and they're poor. We are more likely to make ethical mistakes, violating confidentiality, doing inappropriate things, not doing some of the things we should do, whether it's documentation. We're not as likely to be doing our ethical best. And there's the unethical actions. Transference, countertransference. That's a very psychological, psychobabbly type term. What does that mean? Anyway, what is countertransference or transference?
When you're putting your beliefs on other people.
You're putting your beliefs on the other person. So that would be, so if my husband and I have a nice fight in the morning and then I go to work and I have to see a married couple and the entire time I'm thinking, oh yeah, you stick it to him, girl. You go, yeah, I'm on your side. You tell him. Okay, now I'm on his side, or on her side, and I'm not being good for him. I'm taking my own emotional stuff and I'm putting it on them. Or if there's a time where maybe something has happened to me in my past. Maybe I've been raped or I've experienced a death, and I have a patient come in and they're talking about their issue, and I'm suddenly like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I know what that's like. I felt, yeah, I did that, and that's how I felt. And suddenly it's about me, not about them. Okay, that can also be a problem. Or when they're starting to talk about their stuff, and then I'm experiencing my own stuff. And I'm no longer thinking about their stuff, I'm thinking about my stuff. When I was in grad school, first of all, in grad school, so I have a master's in social work. And when I was in grad school over a decade ago, first of all, I didn't want to be a counselor. I was the only person in my class who didn't want to be a counselor. I thought that sounds really stupid. I don't want to sit around all day, listen to people's problems. I don't want to do that. I was the only one that didn't want to be a counselor. And irony, here I am, a counselor. I also did not want to work with kiddos. I wanted to work with the elderly. And I think maybe part of my head thought, well, I'll work with the elderly because if I work with kids and I screw up the kids, I've screwed them up for the rest of their life. Or if it's an old person and I screw up, they're going to die soon anyway, so I really didn't do that bad. Maybe, I don't know. So, but that idea that I don't want to have to risk that, okay? All right. So in grad school, they taught us that you have to be able to do this thing called self-care. And of course, since I wasn't going to be a counselor anyway, I didn't even know about that self-care stuff. I mean, you don't need self-care. And I hated that class, or that segment of a class. Because one, I was like, I don't need it. Two, you can't take care of yourself. Yeah, I'll take care of ourselves. And it wasn't until I really got in the field, I was like, oh, that's what that is. That's that time where I need to really be able to put up a good boundary between my work and myself and say, what do I need to step away from? And then, of course, depersonalization. When I was in grad school, I lived in Missoula at the time, and I worked at the St. Patrick's Hospital. And I was actually having a conversation about this with a coworker this morning. And we didn't say, the patient's name, one for confidentiality. But at some point, it really was because they were no longer a person. Oh yeah, the heart attack in room 323, yeah, they need to get up. Oh yeah, the broken leg in room 202, they need some water. Where they were no longer a person, they were a diagnosis and they were a room number. And sometimes we refer to our patients that way because it is confidentiality in the sense of, if I'm talking with you and I say, hey, so my borderline patient, I'm not gonna use their name, but I wanna say, what would you do with this borderline patient? So sometimes we do refer to them as a diagnosis, but that should really only be when we're staffing them with somebody else or we're reviewing a case. We wanna remember that they are a person. They're not a checkbox. They're not my 2 o'clock appointment, right? They're a person first. Because I saw the show of hands. You guys went into this field to help people. You went into the field to help that person, that individual. So being aware that when I start to depersonalize, when I start to think of them as, oh yeah, that one person, oh yeah, that one crazy town family or whatever, that's when I have to go, wow, I need to do a little self-check with myself. So, I like to laugh. This is funny. Because therapy does help, but sometimes we just need to scream, kickbox, yell, whatever. How many of you sometimes hear stuff through the course of your day that you just, probably every day I hear a story where I think, wow, I don't know that I would be able to be as resilient as this person. I'm constantly amazed at the horrible things that people do to each other. And I'm also constantly amazed at the resiliency of some individuals. So it's good to have your own therapist, to have a therapist that you can go to just to, because it's going to be confidential. And sometimes you don't want to have to take, well, always, you don't want to take that stuff home. Sometimes you just need a place to go and share it. And if you don't have coworkers that you can do that with, you want to have something, somewhere that you can go. We know that talking about your feelings, talking about what you're going through is helpful. It's always helpful. So we also have what we call vicarious or secondary trauma. And that's a lot of what I was going through last Friday, where I was seeing and hearing what these people had gone through and had some secondary trauma. Anybody ever experienced secondary trauma? Okay, a couple hands up. And that can be just as significant as a real trauma. And of course, a great quote, compassion is the wish to see others free from suffering. And a lot of us, that's what we want to do. That was something else I learned in grad school, that to be a really good therapist, which I didn't want to be anyway, so screw it, but whatever. To be a really good therapist means you work yourself out of a job. You work yourself to where your patients no longer need you. Now now that I've aged and got wisdom, I see that's not entirely the case. To really be good at my job means, yeah, I got to work myself out of a job, but I need to do that through education and prevention so that patients don't need me the way they need me now. There aren't so many broken people out there, okay? So when you have vicarious secondary trauma, those of you who indicated that you had, what were some of the things that you could do? Did you just keep it in? No, you're shaking your head no.
I went to the gym. And
You went to the gym?
Spa day.
Ah,
Yeah.
went to the gym
Took
and had a
care of
spa day.
myself.
You took care of yourself, and you were okay with taking care of yourself.
It was wonderful.
Anybody ever feel like, I'm not supposed to take care of myself? Okay, that was me yesterday. I had a day where I have some chronic pain issues, and yesterday was a pain day. And finally at 2 o'clock, my coworker was like, go home. Well, no, but I've got stuff to do. Go home. The paperwork will still be there, right? But especially us counselor type folks, we like to think, oh no, I'm fine. I've got this together. I'm totally competent. Because our patients need us to be. They need us to be okay. And I don't want to let them down. So I love it when someone says, yeah, I took a day where I didn't, I took a day off. I called in well. I called into work and said, I am well today, and I'm not coming in. Of course, I recommend only doing that if you have paid time off and your boss is okay with that. Okay? I wouldn't recommend just like, hey, the sun is shining and I'm not coming in. So being able to do that self-care. How many of you have another example of self-care that you did? Oh, yeah?
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness. So yoga, any of those mindfulness practices. Anybody ever do any of that? Couple people. I'm horrible at yoga. Once again, I have to sit still to do it, and it's really hard. I'm amazed that I am still standing in the same spot as I was 20 minutes ago. That's impressive for me. Find what you like to do. Find what is good for you. And it doesn't have to be something super healthy like going to the gym or mindfulness. If it's binge watching Netflix, okay. If that gives you a couple hours to not tune in, okay. If it's reading a book, okay. If it's going to bed and sleeping, okay. Figure out what it is. Sometimes it's just going outside, getting some fresh air. Right? Anybody ever take their patient outside? Oh yeah, especially with the younger set, that's where the good stuff happens. Because if I'm sitting in an office with an adolescent, which remember I never wanted to work with adolescents, but yet I've got like 6 of them that I see. Sometimes I don't want to be in my office. Hey, we're gonna go outside and take a walk. Let's go get a soda. Because they're gonna talk to you a lot more, because it's not like this very formal setting. Okay. So we can also get compassion fatigue from our coworkers. Some of you mentioned earlier or kind of indicated that you might have a coworker that is not always roses and sunshine to be around. Anybody? Okay. So how do you feel when you're asked to do something that's not in your job description? You know, does someone ever come to you, hey, would you type that report for me? Hey, would you go check that patient in? And do you ever want to just go, really? Anybody? No, none of you? Couple head nods. Now, let me ask you this. Does it depend on the person? Does it depend on how you're feeling that day? Because I know I'll have days where I might get an email asking me to follow up on something. I'm like, yeah, sure, cool, I can do that. And other days where I get the email, I'm like, really? I gotta do your job too? Have you checked out my schedule lately? You think I have time to respond to an email? When that person on the other end was just simply sending me an email to say, hey, can you call this person back? So knowing that we can also get it from our coworkers. Who is on your team? Do you have a healthy team that you work on? I know for me, one of the things that I had to learn the hard way was that if my team isn't a team that I can work with, I can't stay at that job. I'm in the helping profession, and if I think that I'm supposed to do all of it, that's a bad outcome for me and for my patient. So I need to be somewhere where I have a team. Like yesterday, when I needed to just go home for a little bit, I had coworkers that said, all right, we got it, no problem. And there wasn't a scoreboard where they keep track of, oh, I did that for her. She owes me. Anybody have a scoreboard in their office? People are like, no, I came here with my coworkers. I'm not raising my hand. Do you have a scoreboard? Do you have that idea that I can't really ask for help? If I ask one of my coworkers to do something for me, are they going to keep track of that? Because you don't want to have that either. So being aware of who is it at your profession that maybe is someone that is a drain, that it's hard to have that compassionate attitude with. What is the situation at work that has caused a great deal of stress for you? I want everyone to take just a couple minutes and think about a time at work where you had a great deal of stress. People are like, yeah, it was an hour ago, and now I'm here. Everybody have an idea in their head of something that was particularly stressful? What specifically about that made it stressful? Anybody?
Unclear expectations.
Unclear expectations. Not knowing what exactly am I supposed to do with this? Okay. Anybody else?
Negative teammate.
Negative
Someone
teammate.
who's just beating down our clients all the time.
Beating them down, and then do you ever feel like you're mama bear and you have to protect them sometimes?
Yeah, and then I have to spend my time making sure they're okay.
Yeah.
But I could be doing other things.
She makes your job hard, doesn't she?
Yes.
Have you voted her off the island? Maybe unfriended her on Facebook? Something?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Just checking, make sure the score's even there. Thinking about the times where you have experienced a great deal of stress at work, is there a common theme? For me, when I'm experiencing a great deal of stress at work, is typically when I myself am not taking care of myself. When I'm tired, I have a lot of stress at work. Okay? When I'm not feeling good myself, I have a lot of stress at work. Whereas when I'm taking care of myself, I can roll with it. I'm pretty roll with the punches type of gal. So be aware of your own trigger, so to speak, your own dynamic of what makes work stressful. What are some stressful things for you? And then what are the things at work that frustrate you the most, and how do you handle them? And is it always a certain person? Because if it's always a certain person that's the root of your frustration, I would encourage you to, inside your head, consciously do you know what? That's more about them than me. I used to have a coworker that if she was having a problem, it became your problem. If she was having a bad day, it became your bad day, and it was all your fault. And she was very good at making it be, well, this sucky situation is all on you, and you're a sucky person, and why did we hire you? Why are you even here? And you would own that. And so learning that, you know what? I've done what I know I need to do. I have done my job. This is about you, not me. Being able to define that in my head. This is not about something I did or didn't do. This is you. So thinking about that for yourself. So being aware of when are the most stressful times, and also when are the times when you are frustrated. Is there a common theme, and what can you do differently with it? And sometimes it means I gotta find a different place to work, or I gotta find a different position. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have a profession that is a helping profession that is draining, and burnout happens. And so being able to say, I need a break from this, that's okay. I like this. I think that's a great survey. I think we should all do that. I mean, a survey of one person revealed that 100% of me thinks that I should leave work early. How many of you are salaried? You're an exempt employee, okay? If you are an exempt employee, you are not paid by the hour, you're paid by the job. So like yesterday, I could go home early. I was able to not have to finish out my day, knowing that there's other days where it's a 12-hour day. I don't get paid any different on a 12-hour day than I get paid on a 5-hour day. It's the same. I have that privilege to be able to do that. If you are hourly, do you have a supervisor or a coworker or someone that you can go to that you can say, you know what, wow, I need to take maybe a longer lunch today so I can go take a walk or go to the gym real quick. Do you have that ability? And not only do you have that ability, will you actually do it? Because there's a big difference, especially as counselor type folks. You know, we're all, no, I can do this. I'm stronger than that, right? I don't know, some of the hardest patients I've had to work with are the counselors. The clients that become, or counselors that become clients. Because, no, I'm good. I can totally handle this. Other things that you can do, employee assistant programs. Most employers have employee assistant programs where you might be able to have free therapy sessions. Typically, like at Rimrock, we have an EAP program. You call the number and they tell you available counselors that are in the plan, and you can say, yep, I am going to, you know, go to that person, and sometimes it's free. Free! Raise your hand if you like free. All right. So there's also supervision and support groups. If you want to know about some, if you need a support group, there are some out there, especially if you are a member of a professional organization, like I'm a member of the MSW, APA, things like that. There are support groups out there. And maybe it's as simple as saying, wow, I had such a stressful day. I'm gonna grab a coworker or a friend and we're just gonna go out and have some coffee and just relax for a little bit. So if you're a counselor, I highly recommend that you have someone that you can do supervision with. I have 10 interns / new counselors that I do supervision with every week, where it's their chance to come and say, oh, what do I do with this? How do I handle this? And you need that. And people who even aren't counselors, I do it sometimes with some of our line staff, where they're like, I don't know what to do with this person. Okay, come talk about it. That's a good thing. And then of course, if you have a trusted coworker or an HR program at work that you can go and say, wow, I'm burnt. I am burnt crispy. Being able to do that. How many of you have any of those resources available to you? How many of you feel like you would actually use them? How many of you have used them? Good, excellent. Okay, so then once again, back to that dang self-care thing. How do we do it? How many of you feel like you do pretty good self-care? Yeah. Since there was only a couple of us that identified as being counselors, what is everybody else's position?
Nurse.
Nurse? Oh, who's the nurse? Nurse. Or who's the nurse? Nurses and counselors have the highest rates of codependency and of compassion fatigue burnout, because it is your job to take care of another person, and they get used to, if they have a problem, having to come to you. Okay? So what are other professions?
Well, foster dad.
Foster dad,
My
ooh.
wife's a nurse though.
Oh, your wife's a nurse?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're like a pseudo-nurse sometimes, probably. Maybe, kind of. All right,
She definitely gets compassion fatigue at work.
yeah.
Brings it home.
And she brings it home. What does she do with it when she gets home? He's like, I'm not going to say that. We're being recorded. I have a 2 o'clock open tomorrow if you and your wife want to come. But knowing that we bring it home. All right? Other occupations for people.
Case manager.
Case manager. God bless the case managers. I don't think I could be one. I get annoyed enough when my children are like, Mommy, 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 pulling on my sleeve. And I think that as a case manager, that's how I would feel. I'd be constantly feeling like, okay, you know, because you are responsible for coordinating, finding, connecting all of these important services that they need. Okay, anybody else? The rest of you are just here because, you know, it was windy outside and you needed a place to come. All right, I'm down with that. So how do we do it? Self-care. Eat better. Of course, there's always the taking care of ourselves. It amazes me how many times those of us in the caring profession really suck at our own eating and exercise habits. And then, of course, we wonder why we feel crappy. Well, you had a bag of Doritos and Cheese Whiz for dinner. That would be why. Okay? So eating good, right? Eating healthy foods for us. Exercise. I'm one of those people, I hate the gym. I don't have time for the gym. I'm just, no. But I will do things like take a walk when I can. I walked here. You know, Rimrock is not quite a mile away. I just walked. It was good. It's fresh air. A little windy. But that's okay. My hair doesn't mind. So exercise. And exercise is different for everybody. How many of you are go to the gym, cardio, gotta sweat it out, gotta beat something up, you gotta do something? Okay? And how many of you are exercise more like yoga, stretching, something like that? Being aware of what is good for you. Because I'm not a yoga person. Can't do it. Just too stressful. Yoga stresses me out. Okay? So I know for me, yoga, not a good form of stress release. Now, running or cleaning something, I'm good at cleaning. That is what, if I'm mad, my house is spotless. Okay? That's usually how my husband knows I'm mad at him. So, what is it for you? How do you self-care? And of course, positive thinking. What I encourage people to do is have what's called an attitude of gratitude. Every night, when I go home, before I go to bed, I mentally go through my head, what good happened today? What are the good things that happened today? What am I grateful for? Because that's a good way for me to remember that even with all the trauma, even with all the horrible things that we see on a daily basis, not just at work, but watch the news sometime, right? Being able to go back to, you know what? There are good things that are going on. That, for me, is one of the biggest self-care issues, is how do I stay on track with what is going right? How many of you ever have days where you feel like, why am I here? What is the point of my job? Because, okay. Anybody know the story of the starfish on the beach? A couple head nods? So a little girl's walking along the beach, and all these starfish have washed up on the shore. And of course, they're gonna die being up there on the shore. So she starts picking one up, chucks it in the ocean, walks a little more, picks another one up, chucks it in the ocean, and she's doing that. And this old man comes along and says, you're wasting your time. I mean, look at all the starfish on the beach. There's no way you can pick them all up. You're not making a difference at all. And she picks up another starfish, chucks it in the sea, and says, made a difference to that one. And that's what we do. Because if you thought about all the other foster kids out there, if you thought about all the other injured people out there, if you thought about all of the children that are hurting or the adults that are hurting, if you thought about all that, why bother? Let's just give up, right? There's no way that we can fix everything. It would be too overwhelming. Whereas when you can say, you know what, yeah, can't fix all that. But I did today with that patient, I helped that patient. I chucked a starfish in the sea. You have to find what's positive. Because like you guys said, you didn't go into this for the paycheck, right? You went into it for what we call the second paycheck. The second paycheck is, what did I do right? And I am not gonna be like that unless I take my own oxygen first. Any of you as moms, you ever fly with your kids and they say, you know, in the event of an emergency, those oxygen masks will drop down. Make sure you put it on yourself before helping others. First time I flew with my children as a mom, I was like, I'm putting that on my kid first. And that's like the mom 101, right? You're hungry and the kid's hungry, you give them your food. You want to sleep and the kid needs something, you don't get to sleep. You always give to the kid first. But it's so true. If I'm not taking care of myself, I am not good with my patients. And I'm not good with my kids or good with my husband. So that can be a very hard lesson to learn. Take your own oxygen first. And then what is your second paycheck? I mentioned that a minute ago. What is that second paycheck? How about for some of you? My second paycheck is knowing that I did throw a starfish back in the ocean. There's no way I'm gonna touch them all. But maybe I can do that one. What about the rest of you? What is your second paycheck? Getting to come to really cool lunch and learns at the library? Okay. Find out what your second paycheck is. And as soon as that second paycheck no longer has the value that it once did, that's when you need to start to say, okay, maybe I need to look at doing something different for a while. Maybe I need to look at taking a break. Make sense? All right. So the best weapon against compassion fatigue is job satisfaction. So how do you find satisfaction in your job? Me, I love going to work every day. Even the days that kick my butt, I'm still like, whoo, I like my coworkers, I like what I do, I enjoy going to work, right? If you don't, if you're one of those people that goes to work thinking, just get through the day, just get through the day, it's Thanksgiving next week, I get a free day off. If that's what you're thinking in your head, you might need to shift something. So what is it about your job that you like? Identify that. Maybe that's in your list of gratefuls, right? Every night before you go to bed, maybe that's something. I'm glad that I got to do this. Professional organizations, most professions have some type of group that is a support for them. I'm not sure about nursing. I would imagine that there's some type of group. I don't know that. I know for counselors there are groups that you can connect with. So professional organizations, in-house support groups, depending on what organization you work for. At Rimrock we have that. If people are struggling, we can offer that to our employees. So are you at some place where you can have that? And I don't know with foster care if there's support that comes. I don't know. I assume so, but I don't know. Exercise. And once again, exercise does not have to be aerobics. It doesn't have to be yoga. It can be 5 minutes of sitting on the floor stretching. How many of you make it a point to get up in between each appointment or meeting and at least, take a walk around your building? Nobody? Yeah, all right, yay.
Doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't always happen, but that's what you try to do. And sometimes our job is physical. Sometimes as a nurse, you can't wait to sit down because you're always on your feet. So, okay. But taking that a few minutes to do that, because like when I would stop at home and take a shower and change my clothes before picking up my kids, I was then a better mom. I didn't resent my kids. I was like, all right, I'm ready to be a mom. It wasn't like, oh. Okay. So figuring out what is it for you? What works for you? Vacation? I know, scary word, vacation. And do you like vacation? Do you dread vacation? I know sometimes I'm like, it was not worth the pile of emails and paperwork that is sitting on my desk. Taking a few days off was not worth it. Is that something that you need though? Self-care, get a massage, sleep. Even if you say, I'm just gonna go in late today, making sure it's okay with your boss, because I wouldn't just tell the boss that, hey, I was just gonna, too bad, sucks for you that I wasn't there. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Sleeping, and then of course support from supervisor or manager, your organization, making sure that you are in an organization that does provide support. Because if you're in one of those that doesn't, it's really hard to sustain yourself, right? Okay, so, well, didn't do that bad. So, time for thoughts, for discussion. What if anything percolate for anybody with doing this? How many of you think that, yeah, you know, I'm all right, I do okay? And how many of you are thinking, ugh. We were not told we had to talk at this thing. Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that we've seen just within our own team dynamic my program is, and it's not a current employee, but the past employee would almost become more disruptive and dominating of the debriefing or of our staffing meetings. And so we were never actually having a decision on anything. It was just all word vomit.
Ah, I love word
So
vomit,
we
it's
weren't
great.
none of us could actually deal with the situation or the issues and come up with solutions that were practical. It was just
Yeah.
emotional and chaos.
Right,
That
And-
employee I can care for herself.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly what.
so I don't know if everyone can hear, but just saying that, you know, when they'd have a meeting or some kind, this one employee would just word vomit, all this emotional, dramatic stuff that was going on. And then you say, well, she never took care of herself. So coming to those meetings was her form of self-care, even though that wasn't at all helpful. So yeah, if you have an employee that's like that, you know, and I don't know what your relationship is like with that employee, but can you talk to HR about, hey, you know, when Susie goes to those meetings, I think she's really struggling. I feel very, very fortunate that at Rimrock I have that supportive team. I mean, Friday, one of my coworkers said, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Are you okay? So I feel very fortunate at Rimrock. What are some other things that popped up for this? Yeah,
I think what it brings up for me, because I think I'm not a counselor, but one of the things that happens is I take on the role of taking care of people. And so it feels like something else now that I have to do to make sure that I'm effective for them. I haven't been able to, in this time that listening to you talk, I haven't been able to switch it to make it about me. It's like, oh, this would make me a better person for them. And so,
this would make me a better person for them.
yep.
This would make, you know, right? How many of you came to this thinking, yeah, this will make me a better person for my clients, not for me? A couple of you, okay. Because we do, that's, why did we go into this profession? Because we want to help others. And so, yeah, and then thinking about, well, how do I do that for myself? And sometimes, whether we're a counselor or we're just in a position where part of our job is to take care of the needs of people around us, then you get into that feeling of, I'm not supposed to take care of myself. I'm supposed to take care of other people. I'm not supposed to take care of me, take care of others. So yeah, that's a great point. Anyone else? Guys are quiet.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I personally struggle with is, especially outside of professional life,
Okay.
coming to me and constantly asking for help, and then when I do have to say no, it becomes a huge issue because I said no.
So-
doing that in a way that's compassionate, but also meeting my needs.
So when you're asked to do something, you say no. One, it gets used against you. Two, it's not, sounds like you even feel a little guilty that you're not able to do whatever it is that they need. Anybody relate to that? Okay, ooh, there's a lot of hands. Good, good. All right, so first of all, how do we say no? Okay, everybody take a deep breath. Go like this. No. One more time for practice. No. All right? That's how it's done. Okay. All right, so how do we say no? Sometimes it's the way we say no. And I know, as much as I like to think that I'm all, you know, good boundaries and yada yada, I am a bleeding heart social worker. Okay? When I have a patient call and say they need to get in to see me and my schedule is packed, I will do the whole, yeah, you know what, I could come in at 7. I could come in at 7 in the morning. Do you want to be here at 7? Knowing that I usually don't come in till, well, my workday doesn't technically start till 8, but sometimes I'm there until 5:30 or 6. So yeah, I could totally see you at 7 because that's a starfish that I want to throw back in the ocean. I need to be there for them. Sometimes it's reminding yourself that you're actually not that special. You're actually not that powerful. We are, but we're not. One of the most valuable lessons I learned as a counselor was when I was a brand new baby counselor, one of my patients relapsed. And I thought, oh my God, I failed them. I'm a horrible counselor. I failed. I did not keep them sober. And another counselor who is way more experienced than I, he said to me, he said, "You really think you're that special?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I am." "Wait, no, I'm not." "Oh. As good as I may be at my job, I am not powerful enough to undo 20 plus years of dysfunction and pain and trauma and addiction or whatever the case may be. So sometimes I have to remind myself that it's okay to say no, that it's okay, the world will still turn if I say no. So if I truly can't do something, I do the next best thing. And I say to that patient in my example, "You know what? Wow, I am booked. I don't have any openings. Tell you what, let me take your name and number, and if there's an opening, if someone cancels, I will give you a call. If nothing else, here's my email address. Why don't you shoot me an email telling me what's going on? I won't be able to respond to you, but send me an email." It's amazing when I have patients that do that. I don't respond to them, I don't do anything, but I get the email, I print it, and they know that I've read it. And they will tell me, "You know, just knowing that someone read what I had to say, that mattered. It takes me 2 minutes," right? And I use my work email, not my personal email, right? Don't give out that personal stuff, have that boundary. So saying no, knowing that it's okay for me to say no. And when your coworkers or your patients use it against you, that's where we have to say, "You know what, I know I did my job. I know that I did my absolute best. I know that I made every accommodation I possibly could to get them into my schedule." Or sometimes saying, "You know what, my schedule is full. However, there's another counselor that works here and he has an opening. I know it's not with me, but would you like to see this person instead that week? What else can I do?" Because it's not all about me. It's not all about what I can do. Sometimes I need to let that patient know, or that client or that coworker, "You know what, you're capable enough. You can handle this." I don't know if I helped answer that for you. Maybe a little bit.
No, I think it's really good for clients. What about in personal life when you're too stressed and you go home
And your spouse or your dog or your whatever wants something from you? Okay, so first of all, I would say, after my 2 o'clock with him, I could do a 3 o'clock tomorrow and you could come in. So the first thing that I do, because I have that, I mean, I have a husband and I have 2 children, and I also teach classes at MSW, and there are times where a student or my kid or my husband is like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy," tugging on my sleeve. I'm like, "Ugh." So here's what I say. First of all, is whoever it is in your personal life, are they a person that you can say, "Wow, you know what, today kicked my butt. Can you give me just 45 minutes and then let me come back to whatever this is that you need?" Or will they be offended by that? You know, if I go up to my husband and I tell him, "You know what, it was a really long day. I don't have any emotion left in me. I just need to like not talk or deal with anything tonight." And he goes, "Oh, well, okay." Versus him going, "Oh, so you have time and energy and effort for your work. Guess we're not important to you, huh?" Okay, if I get that type of response, once again, I go to, "Whoa, because this was not about you, dude." And if it's really that, then it's more than whatever's on the surface. Then there's more to it than that. So is the relationship stable enough that you have that ability to enforce your right? You have a right in any relationship to say, "Whew, time out, give me some space right now." Okay? Can you do that in your relationship? If you can't, then that should be a really big red flag that, why am I keeping this relationship that isn't meeting my needs? Because part of a relationship is to meet your needs. And if my need is, I need a timeout, I need some space for a little bit, and that person can't or won't do that for you, if my husband comes home after a long day and he's tired and he just wants peace and quiet, I'm like, okay, I'm not offended by that. That's him saying, I need some space right now. It was a rough day. Okay, great, I can do that. So is there an underlying agenda? Is the person trying to pull you into something and create a drama when there isn't one? Does that make sense? Anybody ever have someone like that in your life? Okay, a few people? Was that more helpful?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I saw the 3 o'clock open, just, you know. Yeah.
I learned something about a year ago that I I'm a person who likes to say yes to things, so
Mhm.
Someone comes and says, will you come speak to this group, or will you do this, or will you be the nurse at, church camp this week or whatever, and a little phrase that I've started using is, that doesn't work for me right now, so it leaves that opportunity open.
Yeah.
And yet, for now, I just have to say no, and a lot of times people don't even want to know why or anything, you just say, that doesn't work for me, and that felt better for me than having to
Sure.
go, well, I've got this and this and this and this, when they don't really.
They don't need to know that, and they don't care, right? That's a perfect example too of when you say, you know what, I would love to do that, but that just doesn't work for me that week, right? We sometimes think that it has to be black and white. Yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad. When sometimes it's not like that at all. It's no, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I would love to, I can't. It's a great technique. Yeah,
I have something that keeps me kind of going.
good,
So I'm really, really new in the human services field.
okay,
And so when I went to my place of work that I'm at now, we actually had an intern in our program who had been doing human services for a long time. So she actually trained me a lot.
okay,
And she said the most important thing that she always remembers is the moment that you start taking credit for their successes is the minute you start taking credit for their failures.
yep,
So I always think about that. I never put myself on a pedestal, and
Yeah.
I always make sure that they know that they
Absolutely.
They were the ones that did their success.
yeah, I've heard that, and we use that too. If you own their successes, you gotta own their failures too. And that's why I say, I'm not that special. I had the privilege of being a part of your change, of your process. I had the privilege of being able to watch that.
Yeah.
For the clients that I had on Friday, I said to them, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I am honored that you chose to share that with me. Thank you. But I can't fix it. Can't make it go away. I can't own it. It's not mine to own. Anyone else? Once? Twice? Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for those of you who volunteered information. I appreciate it. Amy, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, that was a great presentation, Malcolm. If we could give our round of applause. If you could please make sure that you signed in and filled out your evaluation. If you tear off the bottom portion and leave it back there, you have a chance to win a $25 Visa gift card. Also, next month is our Lunch and Laugh. What we do with that, it's still at the same location, but we bring in a comedian because we all need some comedy in our life, right, with the jobs we do. So we bring in a comedian and we feed you all lunch, so I'll be looking for a flyer for that. And that one does require an RSVP, but that will be noted in the email that I send out. Other than that, I'm still working on next year's lineup for Lunch and Learns, but we've got some really great presentations already booked up. So we'll share that at the December Lunch and Laugh. So thank you guys so much.